Well, I did the wrong thing today and bought me a Boss Katana Artist. Yep, I say the wrong thing because this is the cork sniffer of the Katana line of amps. The Boss Katana, the most hyped amp of all time. I don't want to bash him. I think the 112 50 watt version, that's a fantastic deal. $250, that's a great amp for students all the way to people that gig professionally with them. I wouldn't say on huge 20,000 seat venues, but if you're gigging around town, I think that amp is good enough to play in a bar for sure. It's easily 99% as good as the Artist series. They separate the Artist series by putting front panel mounted amp instead of top mounted. I do like that better, but it's just the way the amp is pointing. But they also say this comes with a specially voiced Wazacraft speaker. I think they're trying to go for the greenback mystique because there's a green magnet cap on it. But that would be, this is a 100 watt amp. That would be closer to a greenback, I would guess. I don't know. I've not done the shootout. But those two features do not make this a $600 amp. This is still a $250 amp. So why do I have it? Well, I went to Guitar Center today, and they had this one sitting in there, $275 used. I turned it on. Every function worked, and it did have the greenback speaker in it. But it was just filthy. Looked like a punk rocker had it and dumped 50 Jack and Cokes on it, then vomited on it, and then dumped oil on it, and then other bodily fluids or whatever. It was just filthy. But everything worked on it, and the Tolex was not ripped anywhere. So I thought, well, maybe they'll do a trade on it. So I brought in a Kurzweil old K2000 keyboard, showed it to them, and they said, yeah, we'll trade. We'll let you take this out for $102. And I thought, well, what the hell, $102, I can't go wrong. So I brought the amp home. I took every nut, every bolt out of it, which is the point of this video. If you keep watching, there's another 40 minutes of me tearing this amp totally down. Maybe younger people want to see how to take this amp apart and put it back together. Maybe not, but I filmed myself doing it. Took it all apart, cleaned it, blew all the dust out, cleaned it really, really well, and even used leather conditioner on it. It came out fantastic. It almost looks like new. So this is the Mark 1 version. I got it all back together. I was excited to bring it in and play it. I've been looking for a solid state amp to get non-compressed, uber clean, chimey tones. I thought maybe this could do it. I turned it on. It is uber clean, non-compressed, but is not bright and chiming at all. I think the tone stack in it is mid-focused with not a lot of treble. And you cannot fix that from the front panel. Even with the treble and the presence all the way up, it gets ear-piercingly annoying in the upper mids, but not bright. So I downloaded the new driver and the Boss Tone Studio software, hooked the amp via USB, and started tweaking around with it. I found a parametric EQ effect that can only be accessed via the software. And with that single parametric EQ, you can totally revoice this amp. So I was able to make it uber clean, non-compressed, for, maybe country slide or pedal steel. That's the solid state tone I was going after. And this amp will do it. However, you have to have the tone. It's called Tone Studio. Yeah, Boss Tone Studio software. You can't do it from the front panel. You can only do it in the software and then store it in one of the tone settings. Well, that's what I did. So in any case, my 2 points are the Boss Katana 50, fantastic amp for $250. The Boss Katana Artist, it's not worth $600, not even close. But if you get one used, what the hell, give it a shot. And that's what I did. So what follows is another 15 boring minutes of me totally tearing this amp apart and showing you how to clean it. So if you're interested, keep watching. If not, that's all. Have a good one. Well, welcome to another edition of Brawny Lad on Brownie Hill. Today, we're going to take an amp apart just to clean it. And it's the Boss Katana Artist. I just bought this at Guitar Center used. I gave him 275 bucks for it. Well, I didn't give him that much. I traded it an old amplifier or an old keyboard that I had. I had an old, what was it, a Kurzweil K2000 90s era keyboard. I was getting bored of it, and I swapped gear out a lot just because I'm not a famous or professional musician. So anyway, I traded in on this amp. The amp works well, but it's got cosmetic, it's schmutzig. It's got these cosmetic problems here. So I'm going to clean the thing up, but before I do that, I'm going to take it apart just to see what's inside. So I figured somebody else might be interested in it. I'm going to film all the goofy mistakes that I'll make while I'm taking it apart. So, first thing I'll do, let's see, are we in the frame? Yeah, that's pretty good. Zoom her in. Yeah. I'm going to take the front girl screws out. I don't get, when people trade stuff in, why don't they clean it? Just wipe it down a little bit. You might get a little bit more money out of it. Yeah, that didn't loosen anything up. Before I take that out, let's take the back panels off. They call this a semi-open back because of these two slots, these two boards. Normally it's fully open back, so let's just take all these out to get access. Ah, crap. I always drop something. So it's all just normal wood screws, black anodized wood screws. That plate comes off. Let's see immediately. Don't drive naked. That's a pretty good sticker. Thanks. I love the surprises you find in amps other than, I don't know, carpet fur, animal hair, or some other creature's hair. But it looks like it's pretty dense. Particle board. Looks like it was painted black and then they glued some sort of real thin Tolex on it. Oh well. Take the other panel off.
Yeah, I'm ready. Keep the screws in your hand. Wow, that's pretty nice checker bracing in there. Let's see all this dust on it. Let's try cleaning a little bit. Long Ferrari. That's a decent speaker lead, I suppose.
So, the deal is here, the main reason I bought this is for this Wazacraft speaker. They say it's modeled after a greenback, I guess. So, but it's a higher wattage greenback. So maybe a creamback. This is a 100 watt amp, so I wanted it more for the solid state power amp section, and it's got a greenback in it. So we'll take these out. No schmutz on it other than dust, so. Yeah, speaker looks like brand new. Very nice shape. Though, and you can tell they put some sort of glue in after they screwed it on to keep the screws captive, I guess. Maybe for vibration, I don't know. But anyway, that's the main reason I wanted this amp. So we're looking in the back of the amp here. There's a nut here and a bunch of screws here that look like it holds the front plate on. See the screws on the top and the grill cloth. Yep, it's pretty tight. I ended up tearing it up trying to clean it. Alright. So now I'm going to try to slide the head out, or the actual amplifier. Same size screws in the top and in the sides. My battery's going dead. Now the hard part. So, it's all flat down here. I can tell the ends are wiggling. So these these end screws are out and the top 4 screws are out, and there's 2 more in the center. So I'm going to hold it up on this with one arm while I pull the screws. And these are machine screws. Yep, it's falling.
Something is holding it from the front. What could that be? Oh, there's the bezel.
So, that's the entire inside of the amp. Well, so it looks like all the knobs in front are surface mounted to a PC board right here, and then those all jump over to the power supply board and the I/O board right here, all the I/O points. There's gigantic heat sink right here, and that heat sink's installed to take heat away from the power resistors, but you can't see them really. The power resistors are installed right here, or the power, the amplifier transistors, with a giant heat sink. So seeing a heat sink that big is pretty good. That means they're building it so the transistors last forever. The transformer, however, is tiny, pretty tiny transformer. So I'm just going to blow this out with compressed air. Don't fall. Now when you blow amps out with compressed air, don't get too close, because there's enough air pressure here to blow the capacitors or the resistors, bend them at least, off the board.
Yeah, so.
It wasn't that dusty, I suppose. I'll set this aside, but you can see all the schmutz garbage in here. What I'm going to do is pull all these knobs off and wipe everything down. But otherwise, the amp looks in good shape. However, everything's surface mounted. But man, it's in there pretty tight. So they were using metal jacks with pretty big black washers. So these jacks are holding that card in, or that PC board. These are plastic jacks.
Looks like there's 1, 2.
Looks like there's 2 processor chips inside of it. But yeah, that's all that's in the what is this? Oh, it's the Boss Katana Artist Mark 1. 100 watt amp, tiny transformer, computer chips.
So, let's get back to this cabinet here. I want to take the whole plate off, faceplate. Just want to clean it up.
You gotta see this. Where they glued the braces in, they got this black dye glue, or some sort of epoxy. Let's look in here. Yeah, see? It's all stringy. This glue is stringy. So they put it in with a gun. I guess they're building it fast. That doesn't really impact playability. A little bit sloppy. Looks like all the wood in the amp is this high density MDF. As I'm touching this amp, I'm getting this greasy crap all over it, all over my fingers, because somebody didn't clean it when they traded this thing in. So, how much more farther do we strip it down? Took those screws out. I usually like to take the grill cloth piece out separately.
How does that come apart? We'll see.
There's some more wood screws in here. Let's take these out. I gotta say, man, they are using a buttload of fasteners in this thing. There's a ton of fasteners in it, man. That's a ton. I think these 3 little screws, they could be the logo. I think they are. God, what'd this guy do? Drop a black cherry milkshake on the thing? It's filthy. Yes, those came straight off. So here's the Boss logo. It's that Italian plastique, or just plastic. These little, screw holes. Or should I leave those off? I might just clean them up. Anyway, those were held on with a tiny wood screw. Not really a plastic screw and a washer. Can you see that? These go in through the wood and they screw into that little plastic female nipple. So it is still not free. Why is it not free? So I've taken, well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 screws out that don't seem to be releasing anything, and those 3 little screws out that take the logo off. But now we've got a nut right here. Looks like 3/16. Well, this is a Japanese amp. It wouldn't be 3/16. Maybe, will 7/32 fit it? Yes. These are metric, but my 7/32 is grabbing it pretty nicely. So I'm going to take these 2 nuts off.
There's one here, and there's one here. Why did they do that? Oh, wait a second. I found 2 more. Yeah, the girls didn't waste, those are it.
Then there's another one here, and another one here. The best part of going really fast is not paying attention, so it's kind of a puzzle when you go to put it back together. I suggest you do that on everything except for stuff you drive on the road, like your car or motorcycles. Or is that loose yet? Yep, panel is loose. Finally, the grill is coming out. So the only thing, it looks like these 3 or these 4 threads are the only thing that hold the grill on. There's holes in the corner as well, those big chrome Phillips head. So yeah, that's the grill. There's a nice little piece of felt here on the end. That's a good idea. Get rid of vibration. There's a piece of felt on the top. And 2 plastic trim pieces. I thought I would pull these off and put, white beading or something on it, but I don't think I'm going to mess with it. It looks like normal speaker baffle construction, except this is probably between a 1/2 and a 1/4 inch, maybe 3/8 of an inch. Of course, it's metric, so I would say that's 10 millimeters maybe. High density particle board, painted flat back, black. The finish looks good, but man, it's dusty. So once again,
I'm gonna wash this with soap and water, but I'm gonna blow
the dust off so that it wafts around in my garage and I can inhale it and eventually die of some sort of respiratory disease that they'll no doubtedly attribute to COVID. So yeah, will that trim piece come off? Yep, and this trim piece comes out. So this is a much better, you can tell this is particle board as well. It's dusty as dusty can get. And there's all kinds of this sticky goop, which I can just imagine is probably a Jack and Coke that somebody dumped on it. Because this is the artist series of the Katana. But yeah, it looks like it's 1/2 inch particle board. They painted it black and then glued this Tolex down. It's nice, The Tolex has got a nice finish on it, but it's pretty thin. But yeah, that's the front trim brace. Let's set that aside. The front trim brace. I'm dropping all kinds of consonants. So do you think that's stripped down enough to clean? I don't know. This is plywood. The Baffles plywood, so I can say you do want plywood baffle. I think it is actually less dense and more flexible than MDF, and you want that in an amp, in a guitar amp. Most speakers, like home audio speakers, MDF is better because it is way more dense. It doesn't leak air. It's not as flexible, so you can make a nicer airtight cabinet. The only drawback with MDF is it's heavy. It is so dense, it's a lot heavier than plywood is.
I don't think I'm going to take the feet off, just so I can sit down on something. And normally I take the amp corners off, but there's only 2 screws. I'm not going to waste my time with that.
However, I will take the handle off because there's so much dirt underneath it. So we're going into zoom here on the amp corner. I took this amp corner off of the amp, the 2 screw holes, and you can see the Tolex line right here. So I don't see any seams. This must be a shrink wrap type of Tolex. There is no seam on the corner at all. Well, so anyway, I'm going to take all the amp corners off just so I can completely clean the amp, or the amp cabinet. So we're looking at the bottom left corner of the amp, all this filth. But see, you can see the seam right here, the 45 degrees. And it's pointed right here on the corner. So that's a normal Tolex glue job. However, on the top, the Tolex is cut square and they don't try to cut it on the corner. There's no 45s here. That's curious. I actually like that. Huh. So I'm still midway through wiping this thing down. This is the bottom. It looks like it's got paint on it, like they were painting the room. I don't know if you can see that. There's little stripes in there, little streaks of white stripes. White paint that filled in between the gaps of the Tolex. So I just get a normal Kroger Scotch-Brite pad. It gets most of it out. And the thing with cleaning any kind of upholstery, especially like on cars, is you always start with the least aggressive cleaner that you have, and you work up from there.
There's still a little bit left. So I got every side of the amp wiped down. The reason you don't submerge this in a tub, obviously, I don't know how obvious it is, would suck up water. So I just like to spray the surface and wipe it off. Do the least aggressive thing possible to get it clean. And then you don't have to wait for it. I mean, it will dry out. You don't want it to swell up. You can get it wet, and it will dry out. But obviously, you don't want to wet it down like it's a sponge.
Goo off. I think it's mostly naphtha. I don't know what's in it, but goo off is good. Got to be careful with it because it will undo any adhesive. There's an adhesive holding the Tolex off, and that goo gun touches it. It will take the adhesive off. Yep, it's getting rid of all of it. So all that shit's gone. Nope, a little bit more here. So that sits like that, which means I can get the feet on. not a big deal. Now, when you put this stuff back together, I like to use just elbow power so you can judge how much torque you're applying. And you don't strip the screws out if you use too high of a torque setting on your screwdriver. That's tweak, looks good. The reason I put the feet on first, so when I reassemble the cabinet, it's not sitting on the toe legs, it's sitting on the feet. Why destroy the toe legs? You just spent all the time to clean it. Restore. Then you can tell the age or the usage age of an amp by looking at the feet. How worn are the feet? These look to have, I don't know, 18 or 19 hours of play on them.
Somebody played this amp, I gotta say that. Okay, so, the bottom.
There's a nick here and a nick here and some white paint there. But overall it looks decent. That's not bad. But the rest of it, it's clean, clean. I don't see any nicks in the toe legs at all. So, standing this close, if you're right in front of it, it would look like a brand new amp. Why do people not clean their crap when they take it in for trade-in? I'll never understand that.
So,
There's some schmutz on this. I'm going to take this in and wash it in the sink. So here's how I clean amp corners. That's just an amp corner. If it's chrome or stainless steel, I'll get a piece of steel wool, lay it here on the table, and just polish it. But these are plastic, so I'm using a Scotch-Brite or a Brillo pad that's real mild. It's not very aggressive.
wipe it off, see how it looks. So that's much better than it was, but there's a little, I don't think there's scuffs, but it's like almost like it's white paint or something. And it seems like everything I get from there. Yeah. Yeah, so that's pretty clean. There's one little scuff here.
Yeah, and you can barely see it, so that might be on the top or back. Anyway, I'm organizing over here by how clean they look. Terrible, terrible. So those go in the back, these go on the top. So these four look the best after they're cleaned. Not a lot of marks on them. That looks pretty good, almost like new. This one, however, you can see where it's been dragged around the floor. So I'll put that on the bottom back. That's all I do, sort them. Cleanest ones, dirtiest ones. We'll attach those now. So another thing I like to do, after it's all clean, but before you put the electronics back in, that's nice and clean. But if you get some Meguiar's Gold Class Rich Leather Cleaner, squirt a little on and wipe the cabinet down, it gives it that, I don't know, a soft, clean look. The only thing that sucks is when you depress this plunger, it always primes it, and then when you push it down to put the cap on, you get another splurge of goo out of it. So I'll show you. Then I turn it, now I got goo all over my hands. But I was smart and left the top down, or the plunger down, so that I could put the cap on. But look, if the plunger's up, the cap won't go back on. Come on, Meguiar's. Nobody wants goo all over themselves. But anyway, you wipe this stuff on and let it sit a little bit. So, this amp's pretty clean anyway, but you can tell that's Meguiar's, that's without Meguiar's. And all these little scuff marks, it'll take those out if you rub it in pretty good. Sometimes, I take sandpaper, like real fine grit, and I'll go over the whole top, just super fine, like, I don't know, 1500 or 2000. It'll knock the ridges down. Of course, it scuffs the whole amp, but it gives it a uniform look. And then when you put this Meguiar's on again, it'll be smooth. You won't see any gouges in it. Now that one's not that bad, so I'm going to leave it alone. But I'll show you what I mean on the bottom. I don't know if you can tell. Can you tell? Right here, there's a pretty deep scuff on the bottom of the amp. Right there. So let's see if I can, I'm gonna get some, let's see what I got easy on hand. This is a 3M final stripping pad. Let's see how aggressive it is. Yeah. See how it's getting a little dusty? So I'll rub it until I can't see the edges of that nick.
Try to go all different directions.
But it's putting microfine scratches all along the bottom. So to blend it in, do the whole bottom. And try to feather the edges out.
I gotta get some more elbow grease in this. So then I'll do the whole thing. I kind of just blend. And then you gotta get all that dead skin off of it.
Yeah. Now it's wet, granted. But that's how it looks now. Its scuff is almost invisible right now. So once we let this dry, you can see as it's drying, the scuff marks are starting to come in. And that's just because we took the top layer of skin off. So now, if we put more Meguiar's goo on it, stupidest pump design ever. So I'll show you. If I let the pump up, I guess you can get the lid on. Guess I'm not smarter than the pump is. So yeah. No scuff marks, nice and dark black. Let's let this dry for a while and then we'll come buffing all. Anyway, I'm going to go around and do the whole amp like that now. Another quick trick I do a lot, Sharpie. You can see the Tolex. Can you see that little white dot? Maybe. Right here there's a little pinhole through the Tolex. Just take a black marker and color that in, and now your eye's not drawn to it. Yeah, so from that far away, it didn't look like it's nicked at all. And let's throw some more Meguiar's goo on it. So now it's going to be a little wet and sticky for a while, but that's how Mama likes it. Get a handle underneath while it's out. This stuff does bring the black look back, and it softens it, conditions it a little bit. Handle. Now we're going to put the handle on.
Barely snug, so it's square itself.
Nice and square. Now we torque. Tight. 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 So, the cabinet looks a bunch better. It looks slightly used, but at least it's clean. It's not beat all to hell. Well, so while I'm waiting for this cabinet to dry, let's clean the amp knobs up. Start with a clean workbench. Might as well go through its head a little bit. What I do and what I don't like. Well, it's laid out pretty nice. This is not uncommon for a solid state amp to be so empty on the inside. I do like this heavy heatsink in it. That's a lot of heatsink, so that's cooling down the power transistors right there. This cable is pretty nicely bundled and tight. Pretty good capacitors. They've got glue in between them. Glue on all the speaker joints. Glue on the power output resistor. Pretty beefy mains coming into the transformer, but the output of the transformer, yeah, that's pretty scrawny power wire. Of course, it's a transistor amp. All you're doing is converting this over to 250 volts DC. 120 AC to 250 DC. Here's what I don't like. Here's the input jack. Here's the input jack preamp. And then this jumpers over and goes to a bridging ribbon cable. These bridge wires, they're tight. There's no give in them. There should be a little slack. So that seems to be a weak point, If this flexes at all or gets hot, something lands on that. I don't know what would land on it since it's on the inside of the amp. But come on, man, give us a little slack here. The multi-pin connectors, they're glued down with that red glue. Not bad. You can tell great engineering went into this, but to call this an artisan amp, this is not an artist amp. This is a built-to-cost amp for sure. But, I only gave, $275 for it used, and that was on a trade-in, so I actually only gave them $100 after trading an old personal keyboard I had. So, they sound pretty good. I think it's a good gigging amp, but artist series, or pro level, nah, I wouldn't say that. I don't like to put any chemicals, just soap and water, get it clean so it's nice and dry. We'll go through here in a little bit and put a socket on all the connections, make sure they're all tight. There's a nice strip of foam here and here. Make it flush up with the cabinet. See how hard is it to pull the knobs off? Easy. Sticky knobs. Man, this guy was a slob. So the knobs all came off real easy. They're all 1/4 inch pots. So I'm going to go through and get a socket. Looks like 1/2 inch maybe. 7/16 fits. So I'm just checking to make sure they're at least finger tight, which is good enough for me. You don't want to go putting the socket on here and bending the threads. Probably was used in a cover band, I imagine. The guy was always drunk, fiddling with his amp. Looks a little better. There's some kind of goo coming off on it, so we'll do it a second time. Now these, that's 100%. Oh, what's nice about these is they're the D shaft type of knobs. That's not a round female receptacle, it's a D-shaped female receptacle. So they're all going to be clocked to the pots correctly. Much better. Nice and clean, no stickiness on it. Well, let's install this boy now. So let's remount the amplifier. Can I do this? Yes, it appears there's a shelf that this thing sits on. So there's a raised shelf here and one here. Will that hold the amp in? Yup, that's what it sits on. Let's see what's fighting. So it's in. It's aligned with the front. So put the center screws in.
That's smart, that's good engineering there. I got this set on the lowest torque setting. I'll go back and hand tighten it after I get all these put in.
See, that's good engineering when you can put the amp in and assemble it that fast. Assemble the amp to the cabinet. That's good design. So if they put that, designed it to that level, it gives you an indication how the rest of the amp is designed. So it's back to a functional state. Doesn't look bad. These I think are they cosmetic only? I guess. So it's lowest torque setting. Probably there just to help stop rattles. Yep. Okay. The only thing left is the back baffles. So that's fully open back. There's a bottom brace and a middle brace. I'll put them on now. That's an 8-ohm speaker. We'll plug it in now. I like that. So I can use this as a separate speaker cabinet if I wanted to, and I will. I'm going to AB against the green back here pretty soon. So from directly back of the amp, you can see the speaker's cocked off to the right about 2 inches. I bet they did that because they analyzed how the cabinet sounds. That's another good engineering decision. Overall, I give it an 8 out of 10, but is it an artist amp? No. Artist, what does artist really mean? Oh well, but I like it so far. That's going to drive me nuts, even though it's on the back of the amp. I'm just going to color that in. Just so it's not obnoxious and screaming at you. Fix me! Fix me! Yeah, much better. Is this the middle plate or the bottom plate? I'm guessing that's the bottom plate. The middle plate? No, wrong again. This is the bottom plate. Once again, that little nick is going to drive me nuts. Problem solved. Or rather ignored. Yeah. Man, they use a lot of screws. You can hear that. You don't hear my bit hopping around inside the screw. I use a sharp bit so that I don't round over the ledges of the Phillips screws. It drives me nuts when people let power drills bounce in the screw heads. You're just tearing the screw heads apart. Set the torque low enough where it don't bounce. Use the torque features of your drill, people. By torque feature, I mean you can adjust the torque. Self-evident, but when it's got a drill, you're fighting the full power of the motor. But as you turn the number smaller, you can grab the chuck. It's not spinning and the clutch is letting the bit slip. So set it to the lowest setting. Let's see. Yeah, see, that's just smart. They built a rabbet here so that it just hangs on here without any screws. That's so it's easy to assemble. That's just good engineering. And I have no fasteners left over. That's a first. So now what I'm going to do is put, yeah, this is my leather cleaner rag. I'm going to wipe the whole amp down again and let it dry. Just so it's got all the same uniform amount of leather conditioner on it. And fully assembled, and that's, what, 40 pounds feels like? Good. So, that looks 90% new, much better than it did when I picked it up. And that's what's important. People clean your stuff. I've got what, 45 minutes in this? Maybe an hour? Yeah. Is that worth another 20 bucks on trade-in? Probably not, but, you know, it looks better.